What should I give it to you?
I mean, really, just, I mean, it's not to like qualify or disqualify you. I just want to have it some context so I can, you know, keep you in mind as we're talking about this stuff. Um, we've done the how to sell portion of the training so far. So kind of, you know, service or product agnostic. Now we're getting into kind of the what, right? Technology, cybersecurity stuff that, you know, the education on what's out there. So it's actually pretty appropriate. I'm just curious if you had any like focus or direction that you're looking for.
So to interrupt you, what time is the tech people coming back again?
1 hour from now. So top 12 o'clock Eastern.
All right, thank you.
You got it. Justin, what was your, what were you looking for? I don't know if you said it or not.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of focus at the moment right now, but I just wanted to kind of chime in and see what you guys had to bring to the table.
Okay, cool. Well, what's up, everybody? So, sales folks, how you doing? Getting some good waves. Just me today. Dad couldn't make it. He had a conflict, so that works. This is not really his lane as much. So I thought today we kind of keep doing just general Q&A. This is a good point to kind of take a pregnant pause in this, you know, curriculum and see where you guys are at, see what questions you have. I've got my Intellisys dashboard open. So we can dive into some of that stuff. But I feel like yesterday I kind of just fire hosed you all with like jargon and concepts and vendors and a whole bunch of information. So we start today without that screen up and just to see what you guys are thinking, what questions you have, you know, really trying to map the sales process that we did with the submarine to, you know, business needs, right? What actually are people asking for? What are the conversations you can have that generate these conversations? What are some, you know, discovery questions and strategies that we can use to get people to open up and tell us these things? So that's what we're doing today, Justin. If you guys, you know, please make this interactive and ask questions and, you know, comment on stuff. This thing works a lot better when it's not just me talking the whole time. So what's up, Brandon?
I didn't mean to cut you off, Jack, but I do have a question.
Please do. Cut me off often. I will talk too much.
Awesome. Okay. At least every 3 minutes.
Please.
No, so something that stuck with me yesterday, and I think it was getting to the point of my question when I was talking about, okay, you went from the analysis and there's going to be a follow-on, maybe lease product over time, was you said, ensure you register the deal with the vendor.
Yeah.
That registering of the deal, can you go over that just a little bit?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it's important to back up just a step and talk about the difference between direct sales and indirect sales, right? If you go get a job working for a vendor, you are most likely going to be a direct salesperson, right? In that case, there really is no deal reg unless it's, let's just put that. You find an opportunity, right? Say you're working for AT&T or you're an indirect seller like me and you're trying to sell AT&T. I find a prospect that I think is going to be a good AT&T fit. I'm going to go to that vendor, whether I'm an employee of that vendor or like me, not, and say, I've got an opportunity. I want to register with you. And, you know, basically confirming that I got dibs. And usually there's a timer on it. It might be 30 or 60 days. You register the deal. And that kind of gives you immunity from someone else coming in and selling that same customer, that same vendor. So let's say, for example, Brandon, you get a job working for AT&T in a month from now. You're selling AT&T internet service, right? Fiber internet is your product that you sell. And you're in the Southeast, right? That's your region. So I find a prospect that needs fiber internet and AT&T is available in their area. I can quote it out. I can get it all kind of spec'd out. But if I don't register it, you as the direct salesperson can come sell that customer AT&T internet and I don't win that deal. So if I go to AT&T and say, hey, I've got a prospect that I want to register, it puts it in the system that if you as the direct salesperson, you know, see a marketing lead, they're like, hey, this customer just popped up. They're eligible for renewal and they're in our area, go contact them. If I've already registered it, you're going to see basically a message that says this account or this prospect is already registered with another salesperson. So you can't sell it to them now, or you can't sell it to them for 30 days. And if I don't do anything with it, then it opens up and you can sell to it. That makes sense?
It does. What's that system called that you registered in?
It's not a particular system. It's every independent company is going to have their own process for doing that in their own terms. And so it's just a general, like for me, there's a couple things that are like really important admin notes, right? On the front end, register the deal, as soon as you think it's viable, right? Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till it's like ready to close, because that whole time someone could just swoop in and undercut you from that same vendor. Oftentimes I compete against the direct salespeople from the vendors that I work with. So I don't want to miss that opportunity just because I didn't register it. And on the back end, making sure that I take the signed contract and submit it to ScanSource for commissioning. If I don't do that, customers happy, vendors happy, I'm not getting paid. So that's kind of a wrinkle for indirect sales, not something you need to worry about so much with direct sales, although there's a good chance that the same thing's true. Like if you help your company win a deal, but you don't get credit for it, you don't get a bonus, so getting credit for what you've sold and registering the deal. Those are kind of the two bookends to the sales process that, I make sure that I'm paying attention to, so I don't lose out on stuff that I should be making. And I know that this is like, I'm a smart dude. It took me years to like fully wrap my brain around indirect sales as an entity, right? It wasn't in my like vocabulary. I just thought sales was all direct, and that was kind of the world we lived in. And indirect sales is a minority. It's probably 25% of B2B tech sales. Definitely not the majority of people buy this way, but it is a sizable chunk. So don't feel bad if this stuff is still like a foreign language to you guys. It is kind of opaque, and I didn't know it existed until 5 years ago. So but that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, registering your deals, it's like, in military admin terms, like no one looks after you like you do. You keep your own paper records and everything, so that if, like literally, if I didn't keep my SEAL certification, someone might down the road say, hey, you never went to BUDS. There's no one that I can go to and verify. It's like they have a record somewhere, but like who? I don't know. But I got this cert. It's a stamped, proved SEAL cert that says I did what I did. So gotta cover your own ass in sales as well. Good question. What's up, Colton?
So with you being an indirect salesman, how do you go about like when you were first starting, how did you go about prospecting because I know you said, you started big with telecom and stuff.
Yeah.
But when you started closing that into really like cybersecurity and stuff, how did you go about prospecting for customers before you could get those referrals to start building up?
It's a good question. I mean, I didn't really know about referrals. I mean, loosely the concept of asking for a referral was there, but I hadn't really seen the light on why that would be smarter to do it that way. I did a lot of cold calling, right? I mean, I started on LinkedIn. I worked with a LinkedIn consultant to get my LinkedIn looking good. And I started doing a lot of LinkedIn, just cold networking. Like, hey, I see that you're working in X and Y industry. I'm a recently transitioned, Navy vet, and I'd love to connect with you and learn more about your business. Just, doing that on LinkedIn, looking at like the Chamber of Commerce website, seeing what businesses are there, calling Chamber of Commerce's, companies listed on their registry of businesses, and just saying, hey, I'd like to introduce myself. This is who I am. This is what I do. If you ever have a need for what I do, give me a call. And this is a really low return, like 1 in 100 likely. If I make 100 outreaches, one of them turns into a customer, 10 might actually respond. One of them actually, 3 are in a place that they need what I have, and 1 actually buys from us. Like it was the math was very unfavorable. So that's what I was doing, was just, sometimes I would go, I think my first ever customer came from an in-person networking event. It was hosted by a Chamber of Commerce, meet and greet kind of thing. And there was a business owner there that, and through just talking, just saying, hey, what's going on? It's like, well, we're in the middle of a move right now. We're moving out of a shared office space into our own space. And first time doing that before. And I said, well, have you figured out who's going to be your internet provider yet? She goes, no, haven't even, like, kind of dreading that because no one likes calling internet companies. I was like, yeah, I get it. Me neither. I can actually help you with that. Right. So I just said, hey, this is something I can help you with. Here's my card, text, email me your address, and I'll tell you what's available. And we'll go from there. And that was how I got my first ever internet sale. She was, 4-person, I think they were a CPA firm. So I sold them the most basic Spectrum internet, $70 a month. That was my first sale, but that just came from just cold prospecting, networking events, and meeting people. It's mostly a numbers game. And so, and just for everybody's edification, that I did that for about 18 months. So got out, really it was more like 2.5 years. So I started the beginning of 2018, 2.5 years, started the business and did business school at the same time. So, you know, used my business school cohort as a networking platform, you know, talk to them. All of them are, most of them were employed by companies locally. So that was a way to tell people what I did and got some business through that. So, you know, that's kind of where, you know, as we start to zero in on what you guys do post transition, like, you know, I start, where do you want to be in the world, right? Where do you want to live? Right? Might be where your family's from, where your wife's family's from, might be some, you know, one of your previous duty stations that you really enjoyed. Might just be, hey, I really heard, you know, Greenville, South Carolina is a great place to live, and we're going to relocate there sight unseen. Like, people do that all the time. It's wild. Start there, and then start looking at, like, okay, what are the relevant networking opportunities, right? Chamber of Commerce, you know, networking groups, business groups. There's like a upstate veterans business network, UVBN. It's like they meet every 2 weeks, all veterans in business, and try and find ways to help each other. So there's a whole, I mean, you name it, there's a bunch of like ways to network formally with people, you know, in person, organizationally, on LinkedIn, you know, to some extent like Twitter and Reddit. I've actually had some really interesting business opportunities come through Reddit. Like, you go to the R telecom or R cybersecurity or whatever and just see what people are talking about. You'll often say, hey, I'm the IT manager for a, you know, medium-sized defense contractor, and we're struggling with X, Y, or Z. Like, okay, tell me more about that. You just start, they just gave you a pain, start taking them to the submarine. And I've had people that, you know, turns out I was talking to the CTO from like a major defense contractor out west. It's like, holy shit, you can actually get leads that are viable and real people through Reddit, right? This is an anonymous Redditor that I just connected with, and they're actually a very, you know, promising prospect. Like, so I guess being open to try things, you know, figuring out what it is, you know, you figure out what you want to sell. If you're working for a company, they're going to tell you. If you're working like me, you can tell yourself what to sell. You know, figuring out where you want to be, what networks are going to
What?
be like supportive of that, like I said, the Chamber of Commerce and whatnot, and then just start engaging as much as you can, right? Calling
What?
people, showing up.
Yeah.
Hey, Ivan, you're unmuted, buddy.
Yeah, sorry.
Good. No problem. I just thought you were talking to me for a second. Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But yeah, that's a good question, Colton. I mean, so I did that for 18 months. I had a light bulb moment about referrals about 18 months, you know, into the process. I was sitting in another company's office, right? I was a floater. I didn't have my own office, and I would use their shared office space like once a week. And I happened to be sharing an office space with their sales and account team, right? And one of them angrily hung up the phone that I hate calling Spectrum. Like, what do you mean? Like, tell me more about that, right? Someone expressed a pain. I heard it and I was like, that's interesting, because I can sell Spectrum. Like, what's up with them? Like, well, every time we bring them, you know, one of our clients will ask us for a new internet circuit, we'll call Spectrum, and then Spectrum or Spectrum rep calls that customer directly and tries to poach the managed service business. Says, hey, we can do IT services better than these people. It's like, I hate calling them because they try and steal our business. I said, you know, I'm here every week and I can sell you Spectrum for the same price and terms and everything, and I'm not going to do that, try and steal your customers. So why don't you just call me instead? And they're like, oh, that's great, we'll do that. And then they started bringing me into deals where my problem for the first 18 or so months was trust, right? Nobody knew me, hadn't been in business very long. Why would we trust you even on the surface, right? We're not even going to let you in the door because we don't know you. So getting over the trust hump, I had a great success rate talking to like business owners, you know, meet with them for lunch, for coffee, meet at their office. Absolutely, you know, high rate of getting in there and talking to those folks. And my ask was, let me talk to your IT leader, if there's anything worth us talking about. Because typically the business owners don't know or care about technology stuff. They pay someone else to do that because they don't want to have to mess with it. So really high rate of getting that introduction to the IT leader. And then we just ran into a brick wall every time. Brick wall being, they don't trust me. They see me as a threat to their little fiefdom, right? They've got a budget, they've got a team, they've got a technology stack. all of that is, their reputation as a professional is staked on that stuff. And so me coming in and saying, I can help you fix it, they see that as a threat, right? It's a threat to their professional reputation and their ego. So I ran into, most of those were non-starters. But working with an IT company, all of their clients trust them because they pay them, right? They're the trusted technology advisor for that company. So if I can get an IT provider to trust me, I'm over that trust hump for every one of their clients. So those IT companies call me. I just did one this morning. And in fact, I can walk you guys through the process of what I did just to show you a simple service request. But like, actually, let's do that right now, just to show you an example. So I'm going to share my screen. Share. Okay, so here's, you guys see my email Outlook here? Yep, I'm going to assume yes. So James Berry, Go Custom Cloud Solutions. That's the Go Custom Cloud is a IT company based out of Columbia, South Carolina. So we met with them a year or two ago. They ask us for internet services for their customers. Jack had a great holiday. I have a prospect that specializes in video production. So he wants to actually close this customer. This is not one of his customers yet. This is a prospect. So they have a problem with sending and receiving large video files because they're a video editing company and they're looking for upgraded bandwidth, right? So probably a move from like a coax internet to a fiber internet. Okay, cool. So there's the business name, there's their address. I take that, come over here to my tools. This is a toolkit that I have through ScanSource and Telesys as an independent sales agent. I'm going to go to Cable Finder, which helps me figure out what internet services are available at a given address. And then I'm going to drop it into Cable Finder here. So I'll take, that looks right, search. Okay, so at that address, fiber initial checks indicate major construction may be required. So it's not on net for fiber, meaning there's not fiber already at this building. Coax says light to moderate construction, but I'm pretty sure that's what's already available in the building, what they're using today. So this just means that the Spectrum system isn't updated. So let's just say they were ordering coax. They're not, they're looking for fiber, but let's just say they were, because I can't do the configure pricing if unless it's available. So come in here, select term. So coax is always going to be month to month, meaning there's no contract required for coax. There's no, you don't sign up for a long-term contract. You just say, turn on my internet and they start providing it and you can walk away. So here's your speed options, low, medium, high, and then there's bundles. There's a whole crap ton of bundles. So if you wanted to add like a voice line, for example, if you wanted just a front desk phone, if you wanted a line to support an alarm or an elevator, there's a number of reasons why you could need that voice line. There's different pricing for bars and restaurants for whatever reason. But anyway, we would pick one of these packages. Let's just say we go no package, basic internet. We'd toggle this on, pick our package, want Wi-Fi, no Wi-Fi backup. Let's just say you want a static IP address because you need something for your website or something like that. No TV, no phone lines. See all of our pricing here. You can get, so these are some jargon that you might hear as a salesperson. So NRC and MRC. So NRC is non-recurring costs or non-recurring costs. That means that's a one-time charge for the customer. And then MRC is monthly recurring costs. That's their monthly bill. So $99 to start and then $93 a month. To say I wanted to send someone a quote. They are zero gravity. Zero gravity. It's where typing's harder with people watching. So okey doke. That'll generate a quote. Now I've got a quote. So I could send this to a customer. Said, hey, next thing I'm going to do is send you, a budgetary pricing proposal. Here's what you got, right? Spectrum Business, Zero Gravity Project LLC. Tells you all the things you need to know, make a decision on that. And then they say, okay, great. Give me a contract. And then we can actually place the order for them because there's no contract. It's literally just place the order on their behalf. So once I get a thumbs up from the prospect, go ahead and turn it on, right? What date do you want your internet turned on? We're ASAP or the first of the month or whatever, and we can make that happen. So if it were fiber, there would be a contract that was generated and you'd pick the term and everything, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, something like that. And that would all be on there and you'd send that to them for signature and return. So that is in a nutshell, the life cycle of really any deal, right? I mean, we use different tools for different services. That's just for internet. That's where I cut my teeth, was selling internet like that. And you can see, if you go back, I could show you guys if I wanted, but like probably for every 10 requests that I do, I get 1 sale. So, having right now, I've probably got 4 IT companies like Go Custom Cloud that send me the occasional request for an internet circuit, price check basically, or availability check. And so those are easy. They take me 5-10 minutes to turn that around. It doesn't really cost me anything. I don't have to pay for that access to scan sources stuff. So, other than my 10 minutes of time, it's a free thing to do. So that was how I started going to market after I had that realization that referrals are better than cold new prospects. So I'll have 3 or 4 of those a week. That means, roughly 1 new customer every month. That's pretty slow, honestly. And that's me doing next to nothing, other than calling these referral partners, once every few weeks and just saying, hey, James, what's going on, man? What's in your world? So for James, he's trying to sell IT services, right? I can help him sell IT services by giving this information on what's there for internet. So he's incentivized to keep coming back to me. So same thing's true for commercial real estate folks. So that's a good question, Mark. I'll get to that in a second. So for commercial real estate people, they're trying to sell either a lease or people buy the building or lease the building. That's their goal. They've got prospects that they're trying to get into buildings. It's a very good time for us to meet that prospect because moving into a new space you've got to put internet in. It's just one of your many things you have to do moving into a new building. And so I get the trust of the commercial real estate guy or gal. They say, hey, XYZ company, congratulations on your new building. We just sold you that new building. You get set up with internet. We go to Jack Sterling at Cloud Hound. You can get you set up from there. Perfect. That's a trusted, warm referral that I just got. That's way more valuable than if I just reached out to that company independently and said, hey, I'm Jack in Greenville. I see you just bought a new building. Can I help you with internet? Right? There's a trust factor that's transferred when I get the referral versus just being a random dude that calls them or, shows up on site or something like that. So Mark's question was, how much are you making on a sale like that? Right? That's a good question. So we don't typically make anything on the non-recurring costs. So the upfront cost is kind of a non-factor for us. For monthly recurring, rough 17% of whatever their monthly spend is. So let's just say they were spending $100 a month, we get $17 a month in commissions. And that scales, universally. So if they're spending $1 million a month on internet, we're getting 170K a month. And there are companies that spend $1 million plus on internet every month. So it's if you look at my sales history, a lot of little fish, right? So we categorize prospects into kind of 3 categories. There's there's squirrels, there's deer, and there's elephants. You go out to hunt for an elephant, you might not catch an elephant for a year and you're going to starve to death. If you just hunt squirrels, you're going to have to catch at least 3 or 4 squirrels a day or you're going to starve to death. That's a good, yeah, Mark, that's right. So that's like a perpetual income as long as they stay in business. So as long as my customer is buying the vendor that I sold them and paying their bills, I'm getting commission checks on it. So that's the beautiful thing is I'm getting paid on stuff that I sold 3 years ago. With fiber internet, people don't typically change very often, right? Once it's in, it's just like, yep, we're good. We might need to turn the speed up at some point, but we're good. We've got fiber now. There's nothing better out there that we could upgrade to. So, selling those, and a fiber circuit's typically, like we just quoted coax, $70. That's kind of the floor for internet. There's not anything cheaper that I'm aware of. I think the entry level fiber is like 10 meg or 20 meg. And that is, starts around like $300 a month. No monthly fee for Intelisys. Intelisys, like I said, the only time we don't pay them per se, the only time they get paid is when we sell something. They get a percentage of, it's like 5% of the net commissions or something like that. Like it's not much, and it doesn't come out of our pocket directly, right? We're not giving them money. They're just paying us our commissions less their fee, basically. So, but no, there's no like subscription fee. There's no membership fee. All of you could be Intelisys partners without paying anything upfront or overhead wise. So, pretty good deal for a solopreneur, because you're no one else that I'm aware of does what I do with that cable finder, right? It's something that I've taken and adapted to my own use, made available to commercial real estate folks, to IT managers, that kind of stuff, to say, when your prospects or customers need internet, I will use this tool to help you add value to what you do, so that they're incentivized to come back to me over and over and over again when they have opportunities for this, because it makes sense for them too. It's not just helping me. That's a good question, Mark. What else you guys got?
What's your
know-
typical rate on those deals? Is that sounds like a pretty easy process. You're only spending a couple minutes of your time to send those out. And if Intelisys takes 5%, what do you get on those deals, Jack?
So the 17% is what we get, right? So that's already factoring in Intelisys' fee and everything else. So, if you want, I don't know the exact math, but say like, I should know. I've been able to say it before, but it's something that's just abstracted for me, right? So Intelisys has their relationship with the vendors, and they negotiate kind of their prices with the vendors. The vendors factor that into their prices, right? So we don't have to think about any of that stuff. We just sell it
That's
and
awesome.
get paid the set commissions. And if you want to go look, I'll show you guys. You can see. Share my screen again. So when I share my screen, this bar pops up that blocks all of my tabs. I can't see anything. Okay. So let's go back. Let's get out of the cable finder tool. We'll go to not commissions. Commission schedules. Yep. So this tells us what each vendor is paying for commissions. And I'm going to go to one that I've worked with before. Let's go to Momentum. The Momentum is actually our #1 vendor as far as revenue. So we've got the most stuff with them. So right now, Momentum Telecom Sales Partner Commission Schedule, hosted voice over IP services, and applicable applications, other phone-based apps, 19.2, right? So that's $100 sale. That's $19.20 a month on that. And a $100 sale for them would be like 4 phones. So imagine a small restaurant or something like that. And I've got a couple of those. SIP, that's just a different, phone type service, like Session Internet Protocol. I forget what that stands for. Maybe some of you tech people could tell me. But 19.22 as well. And then other stuff, internet circuits and broadband is 12%. So, and that tells you all the terms here, what actually counts as a sale, how long. Intelisys, like this kind of just tells you when you can expect to get paid, right? So that's what that one looks like. Maybe go to a, I don't know why. RCS Secure. So this is another vendor that I've worked with in security space. So pro services, talked about yesterday. So assessments, compliance efforts, vulnerability scans, pen tests, 8%, right? So less, because they're doing all the work. And then managed SOC, 16%. Like I said, we'll use those professional services monkey's paws to get in the door. They're not going to be what make us our money necessarily, because oftentimes it's a 1% or one-time thing. They'll say, we're going to pay you, 100 grand for a tier 3 pen test. Okay, so we're going to get 8 grand on that one time. That's $8,000 in a one-time paycheck. And then they're going to spend, $30,000 a month for managed SOC. we get 16% of that. So what is it? I don't try and do mental math in front of everybody, but 16% of 30 grand a month is definitely preferable to 8 grand one time. So kind of shedding some insight onto the process of getting those little sales sold, those the pro services, the training, the all the little stuff we talked about for monkey's paws just to get in the door, so that we can sell these big hairy security as a service, stock as a service, for a bigger company. So like we're working with a company locally in Greenville. They're a South Carolina based gas station chain, so Spinks gas station. They've got 90 locations. Every location has 2 or 3 internet circuits, average of about $1,000 a month spend per location. So $1,000 a month per location times 90 locations, you look at 90 grand a month that they spend on internet. So for us, I'm doing everything I can, little stuff, big stuff, running after stuff that doesn't even match our kind of prospect profile, just to kind of continue to help them whatever they need, so that when their circuit business is up for renewal, we're right there at the top of the food chain for people that might be able to help them with that. Because $90,000 in revenue, I mean, that's almost like 15K a month in commissions. So definitely worth putting in the effort to win with them. So what other questions do y'all have?
So did you get hired onto these separate companies, like as a separate entity, to just try and move these sales to different customers? Or
It's a good question, Justin. I mean, the whole thing that we're describing right now is called indirect sales. So I don't work for anybody. I'm self-employed, run my own business. It's called Hound, and we're an independent reseller. Best way to describe it, right? So we don't work for any of these businesses. All of these companies have what's called an indirect channel program, meaning they have so think from a business perspective for a second. So if you are running a company and you need to have sales to have people buy your stuff, right? You can either choose direct sales, indirect sales, or both. A lot of companies have both. Direct sales, you hire salespeople, you hire a sales manager, you set a quota, have kind of quarterly goals, and that sales team goes out and tries and sell up to that quota, right? And they're not going to try and sell someone else's stuff. They're going to try and sell your stuff. So that is say Mark's question right now. That's the normal sales way. That's what I knew coming out as sales. Companies can also say, I don't want to pay salespeople to just sit around and try and sell stuff, right? I'm going to pay them a salary plus commissions, and that sucks, right? If they don't sell something, I'm just paying them to effectively not sell. And so to avoid that, they go a channel route and say, I'm only going to pay these, we don't employ you. We don't give you any benefits. It doesn't cost us anything until you sell something of us, and then we give you a commission. So the commissions are generous because they're not paying us anything otherwise. So that's how, I didn't get hired by anybody. These companies all raised their hand and sign up with Intelisys to be, to enter into the channel program with them. So I hope does that answer your question? I know it's kind of an opaque
yeah,
process.
I guess so. Essentially, for indirect sales, it's almost as if it was almost contractor based. Like you find a contract that you want to push from a separate company, and then you help the network, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, so it's what ends up happening. I mean, kind of the beauty of the indirect sales channel is that from a customer perspective, right? Imagine you're going out to buy, let's say, internet service. How often do you do that, right? Maybe once every 3 years, maybe. If you've got a big growing organization and you're opening up new branches, new locations, you got to do it more often. But that's a hassle, right? Every time you go, hey, we're in a new zip code now, the internet provider we like isn't there. We got to go find a new one. That is, maintaining a direct relationship with an internet vendor is a task in and of itself, right? It takes time out of your day, and then you're not getting comparable quotes from every other internet provider available. So plus when you buy from, say you go to buy from AT&T, intrinsically that AT&T sales rep is only going to sell you AT&T, whether that's what's right for you or not. They have no incentive or motivation to sell you Spectrum or Verizon or anybody else, because they don't work for them. They work for AT&T. So The direct sales rep of the world are inherently biased. Nothing against them. It's just the nature of the beast. They cannot be unbiased for the customer. And that's what we do, right? We're independent. We don't have a bias toward any one of these companies. They all pay about the same commission rates. And so I don't care. I don't care who you buy as long as you buy through us. And so I can be honest with the customer. I can be there through multiple different purchase cycles. So if they buy internet, they need phone service, and they need cybersecurity, I can be there for all three of those things. I kind of know what they need. They start to trust me and learn that I have their best interest in mind, and they're not at the whim of, biased direct salespeople, right? We've all dealt with salespeople that are like, I want to sell you what I have, right? That's my job. And I've got a quota. And if I don't make that quota, I'm going to get fired. And I don't have money for my kids. And it's like, yeah, of course, it makes total sense. The physics of the direct sales relationship are what they are. You can't get around it. But that's why the whole indirect sales channel exists, is because there's a different way for people to buy. And it's only business to business. I don't know that this exists for B2C type stuff. But for B2B, this is makes a lot of sense for, I think, everybody involved, right? The vendor only pays you when you sell something. The customer gets an unbiased kind of vendor agnostic look at the marketplace, and I get to work for myself, right? Make residual commissions on stuff that I sold in the past. Win-win-win.
So with your indirect sales, how do you yeah, my bad. I'm probably asking a question you guys already went over and
No.
shit like that. But when you're networking out towards sales and commissions like that with indirects, what's your main approach on, I guess, finding customers?
Yeah, so we started just directly reaching out to people saying we're technology consultants. I'm a technology consultant. I can help you navigate that marketplace, right? I started with a really big aperture. I can sell you anything in the technology bucket, and I started globally, right? Any problem in the world I can help you solve. So I was trying to solve a company that wanted to have a data backbone from Taiwan to Southern California without being interfered with by China. So they wanted us to find a way to bypass the Great Firewall of China. Like, sure, that sounds fun. Spent 9 months trying to do that, went nowhere, made no money on it, and probably was involved in some industrial espionage in the process. The story for another day, but I tried to help a hospital in Costa Rica install fiber. Did a bunch of stuff kind of all over the place, and gradually realized that we need to prospect a little more tightly, right? So I can be a little more, doing what I was doing. I'm never going to become a subject matter expert, right? It's too general, it's too vague, it's too open. I'm just going to be chasing these disparate opportunities in all corners of the world. So zeroing in on where it is that I want to prospect, what product or service do I want to sell. So focused on internet, gradually kind of morphed into internet plus security is our kind of main offering. And so as you're prospecting, it's almost a habit, right? As you talk to people for any reason, you can start to pick up on cues and listen for things and ask questions that are open-ended, and being a better listener. But it's a similar to process you processed for direct sales, right? Or it's where might my customers be? Where do they go? Where do they talk about stuff? So like, honestly, I like Reddit. Reddit's a great place to kind of get a pulse of what's going on. You find where people are sharing their problems. It's an anonymous site, so people can just be honest and like, say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And, so word of mouth's huge too. And it takes time to build that, but like talking to people about what you do, asking them for referrals, like, hey, if you know anybody that could use what I've got, I'm trying to grow on a referral basis organically. So we'll really appreciate an introduction to anybody you think's appropriate, right? Just asking people. And I've gotten some of my best customers, the IT company that became a wholesale buyer, that's our top customer today. Friend of mine, he had no idea. He really did not understand what I did, but he met someone else that worked for that company and was like, I don't really know what you do, but I think you should go talk to Jack and you guys should have a good conversation. And that turned into our biggest customer, because I planted the seed in someone else's brain about what I'm looking for and how I help. So I think that's, it's a subtle nuance, but as you're prospecting, not thinking about every person you talk to as a potential sale, thinking about them as a potential referral partner that can send you business as opposed to being, because the chances are it's pretty unlikely that when you talk to somebody on a random date, they're going to need what you have that day, right? Pretty much, unless they raise their hand and come to you, you're not going to just happen on to bump into somebody prospecting that needs exactly what you have right now. Low likelihood. That's why I said 1 out of 100 direct prospecting, outreach things that I did resulted in a sale. It's just not a good numbers game. But if you can prospect to plant seeds in people's heads to say, here's who I am, here's what I do. If you hear someone talking about this stuff, send it my way. And that has worked well for me. That's been something that's not only is it kind of multiplies my efforts. So everyone that I talk to becomes a potential kind of lead scout for me. It also changes the conversation. So instead of me trying to gain your trust and keep you on the phone for 2 minutes so I can, pre-qualify you, I'm talking to somebody that's like, hey, I was referred to you by such and such who I trust. What can here's how you can help us. Can you do this? And it's like, they're already past the trust barrier. And now they want to know how it is that you're going to help me. Not who are you again? Like, how many employees do you have? How long have you been in business? Trying to do the same, stale vetting process that every business does. So I hope that helps, Justin. A lot of words. And I understand this is like, I was, my mind was blown for like 2 or 3 years as I when I started this, just because it's such a big hairy machine. But it doesn't have to be as complicated as I make it sometimes.
Hey, Jack, is there a way you can I don't know, write the whole process down or everything? Unless we're gonna go over it, in this cohort.
You mean, and we documented the sales process, right? Kind of the product or solution independent sales process, right? So you can
Right.
use that process to sell anything. What were you specifically meaning though?
Okay, let's say I understand, you find your prospect, you sell, you convince them to buy your stuff or word of mouth, like you said. And then after that, what's next, right? You go to Intellisys and then you coordinate with whatever company you're working with. But I'm kind of lost in that section. Okay,
Yeah.
let's say I find this company, they need internet, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got you. I can help you like this. And then what's the next process after that? That's my question.
Yeah. So, this is where kind of taking that, the sales submarine process that we've taught you guys, and marrying it to what it is that you're trying to sell, right? So
Right.
let's just pretend CloudHound is an internet only company. That's all we sell. If I get, a prospect that says we need faster internet, right? I think it's really important to ask a lot of questions up front, because a lot of times people will think they know what they need, but they really don't. And that's kind of where my job as a consultant comes to play, is asking them intelligent questions to be like, what do you have today, right? What internet solution are you using? What vendor are they with? What kind of problems are you having with that, right? Is it a slow problem, like your internet's too slow? Is it go down too much, right? The internet's turning off, being
Right.
unavailable too often, that's hurting your business. When were you hoping to have it solved by? I've had a lot of conversations that sounded really promising, and then I asked that question and they're like, yeah, probably sometime in Q3 or Q4 this year. So 6 to 9 months away. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, and that's usually contract driven, right? They might be 2.5 years into a 3-year contract, just kind of kicking the tires on options. They're not ready to buy right now. They're just looking for information. So, okay, that's better to know that now than to think that this is a ready buyer looking to close on something this week. So asking all those questions up front is a good habit to be in. Learn as much as you can about what's going on, run them through the pain funnel, like we talked about. And then once you've got a really good idea what they're looking for, then you can go, I'll go to, so Chris Dennis, you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So my sales contact at Intellisys. ScanSource is the company that owns Intellisys. So one and the same. I'll go to Chris, I'll go to Brian, other side of the screen here. Brian's my solution engineer. So those two guys, I'll say, got a prospect looking for X, and who do you recommend? That's one way to do it. I could also just go right into the system and ask it what's available and get the options. For something as simple as internet, those guys really don't even need to be involved. If it was more like
Pen test.
what's that?
I'm like, if it was more like a pen
A
test,
pen
then they would.
test, if it was like a big multi-site organization that had more nuanced needs, like Sphinx, for example, that's not something I can go in and just quote in the system easily, right? I would have to go to those guys and say, okay, here's the constellation of problems and pains that Sphinx has articulated to me. Like based on all these different factors, right? They're looking to improve their, their network performance and uptime. They're looking to consolidate all the point security solutions they have into one vendor. They've got a bunch of disparate security efforts, but none of them are unified or cohesive into one strategy. They're looking to gain visibility into the availability of their IT resources, both human and technology. Like that's a lot, right? They've thrown a lot on my plate. They need security awareness training. They need to automate patching their various systems. They don't have that automated today. So they've put a lot on my plate as far as like stuff to work on. So I took all of that, summarized it, gave it to Chris and Brian. That based on this, Sphinx is a 90 location gas station chain. Like, who would be a good vendor to start with? Like, who comes to mind when you think about, and that's all they do all day, every day, right? Chris and Brian exist to support partners like me to point us in the right direction. Because, I know more than the customer knows about the vendors, but I know less than these guys, right? These guys are in it all day, every day, helping partners solve problems. So that's the process in a nutshell. And they'll come back and say, vendor X. Like for Sphinx, they said Cato Networks. And so I got up to speed with Cato, met their reps, got a brief demo on their product and service and their platform and everything. And now I'm, equipped with the knowledge to go back to Sphinx and say, listen, based on what you've told me, there's a very good chance that Cato Networks is going to be a good provider for you to check out. So that way, I've done all that work for Sphinx for free, which, there's debate on the merit of that, right? I'm doing free consulting. You're opening yourself up to potentially being used as a pricing tool, essentially. But on the flip side, it's like, listen, this is the value that I add as a consultant, right? Sphinx has a shit ton of stuff on their plate. They have a very limited IT team, and for them to do all this research would just take time out of their day to do it. Right? They'd have to, they couldn't be doing something else on their plate. So this is why they work with me, is because I'm doing all the work to, I have their best interest in mind, that I'm not working for any one of these vendors, right? I'm going to honestly say, based on what you've told me, based on what our, solutions engineers have said, Cato Networks is like a 99% match with what you're trying to do, right? So we're pretty confident that if you agree to at least talk to Cato, that you'll like what you hear. So does that help kind of
Yeah,
light
it
that up a little
does.
bit?
Yeah.
So,
Another
go ahead.
question I had for you though. So you said you had like your own company, right? Was
Yep.
that specifically so you could sell, or was that like something else, like a whole other entity of stuff?
No, it's specifically just to sell, just so you have,
Okay.
you can't register with Intellisys as just an individual, I don't think, or maybe you can.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes complete sense.
And
Okay.
then, it just to have a business entity and there's some like legal protections and stuff that you get doing business as an LLC versus like an
Right. So you
individual.
have your own LLC then?
Yep, just Cloud Hound LLC. It's just something I
Okay.
set up in the state of South Carolina, and it's how I do business.
Do you have to get any licenses for that?
No, there's no, so we're not like, one of the interesting wrinkles is as a partner of Intellisys, like we don't really, all of the like liability falls on the vendors that we bring to the table, right? So
Okay.
if I sold a pen test, for example, and it went sideways and the customer wanted to sue, they'd sue the pen test vendor, right? I
Okay.
have no liability to our customers, right? It's I guess it's a downside for them, is we don't have any we're not liable for doing a bad job, for example. So
Yeah, but I mean that's better for you.
no, 100%. No, it's absolutely. And that's why like I'm jazzed on what it is that I do, right? I work from home, I set my own schedule. I can, go on vacation, work from the road. Like, I don't have a quota or a boss. And, it's really kind of like, it's a way to pursue the lifestyle that I wanted getting out of the military, which was to be there for my kids as they grow up and, be a part of their life. Like that was my why. And this platform lets me do that. To answer Mark's question a couple minutes ago, so Intelisys used to be what's called a master agent. They've changed terminology because I guess master is not, people don't like that, it makes them feel weird, but that's what they used to be called. And so there are other master agencies besides Intelisys. Intelisys is the biggest one in the world, but there's one called Telarus, there's one called Sandler Partners. There's a couple of different, and I don't mess with any of those. You'll talk to a lot of agents that are, more established, more successful, been in the business longer, and they'll have multiple master agent relationships. So they'll get, and this is still, that makes my head hurt. They'll get a customer opportunity, prospect opportunity, and they'll go to 2 or 3 different masters to try and get the best rate, right? So I talked about those commission rates earlier. Intelisys might have a 16% rate, while Telarus might have a 20% rate. They're going to go through Telarus because it's all the same to the customer. It's just which one's paying more today. I have really kind of stayed away from that because it's those percentages differences aren't that important to me. The simplicity of just using one master is. So I'm comfortable doing that. Others aren't. They use multiple to kind of cover, not all their eggs in one basket. But I don't really worry about it that much. If we get huge, maybe we'll differentiate masters a little bit, but today we're not doing that. But good question. What else do you guys got? This is productive, I think. So what else can I show you? Does anybody else have any questions about the either in the Intelisys dashboard or our process, or just in general? We could dive into any product, service, or vendor that you guys wanted to.
No, I mean, you kind of answered my question. I just wanted to understand the process. Like you find a guy, you get in there, and then you just kind of throw him towards this Intelisys website, and then you find whatever vendor is compatible with him and works, and then you just sell them.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, we've so like I have not had conversations with most of these vendors, right? I couldn't tell you what Intermedia Cloud Communications does. Never talked to them. I've kicked the tires on Entirety. They're a security and compliance vendor.
Are what are they called? Like telecommunication businesses on here as well?
Yeah, that's kind of the primary, like telecom, networking, all that stuff. That's kind of the meat and potatoes for Intelisys. Security is not really their, like, it wasn't what the company started doing, put it like that.
Okay.
Like that was not their entry point. Mostly telecommunications. And that's how we started too, right? We started mostly selling, we got the advice to go sell circuits being telecommunication stuff, until you figure out what you're good at, right? Circuits are universally needed. Every business needs phone and internet for the most part. And so you can go out there and you can, just sell circuits. We can still do that, right? So like Zoom, we can sell Zoom, right? Zoom's pretty profitable and hopping and booming during the pandemic. Advantix, we've actually probably the biggest customer, not by how much they spend with us, but just by their overall size. It's like one of the top 5 employers in the state of South Carolina. It's the Prisma Healthcare Network. We used Advantix to do a telecom audit. So we audited their billing process, the way that they were paying their telephone and internet bills across the entire hospital network. So there's like 150 locations, thousands of beds, like 80,000 employees, just a massive operation. The way that they were doing their paying their bills was every location got a bill for phone and internet independently, and then someone at that location had to drag that bill every month into a shared folder, and then someone at headquarters had to access that shared folder, take all of the bills from every site, drop it into a spreadsheet, and then go line by line and pay each invoice individually. And that process took a 4-person team, like I think it was like 40 hours a week for 4 people. So 10 people, 10 hours a week per person, 3 workers and a manager. It was, I could pull the math up and actually tell you exactly what it was, but just on the process to pay a loan, we found it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings a year by automating that process. So it's no longer this manual bill paying process. So Advantix offers this like telecom expense management software. So they'll go in and tell you like, hey, your process sucks. We'll sell you this piece of software for 20 grand a month, and it's going to save you $1.2 million a year. So 120K a year expense, 10x return in savings. So
And same question as earlier. So how did you find this like inefficiency in their system?
yeah, so it started, I was working with a partner at the time. He was in business school at Clemson with me, and we were in different classes. So he was in the entrepreneurship MBA program. I was in the analytics MBA program. So we sat across the hall from each other. And one of his classmates was the CTO at Prisma. So the CTO at Prisma was taking the MBA entrepreneurship program with him, and just in the conversation, sitting next to each other, they figured out a way that we could potentially help. They're like, okay, so they agreed to a meeting based on that conversation. We brought Advantix in after the meeting. We kind of qualified that they had a manual bill pay process for their telecom stuff. It's like, okay, they are at least, they don't already have a telecom expense management platform today. So they weren't doing this. So easier to sell something net new than it is to replace somebody that's already there. Used, really, it was over the course of like almost 6 months of meeting with them, asking for information, going back and forth. Took all the information that they gave us, and maybe I used to have this. This was like 4 years ago. See if I can find the actual spreadsheet. But my partner, the buddy, since it was his contact that he was working, he kind of led the deal. But he put together a really smart ROI Excel spreadsheet. So calculated based on their data, right? So they told us what each full-time employee made that was working on telecom expense management. So the manager made $60,000 a year, and the workers made $45,000 a year each. So we took, that's added all that up, and then times the time that they spent on this every month, and then used that. And then there was also the Advantix did an audit of their process. So basically took their bills for the last 6 months and then compared that to a baseline of telecom expenses across the industry, and said that, you guys are spending, it was like 20% a month more than you should based on late fees. Like you're paying late fees that you shouldn't have to, because your process results in late fees and errors all the time. You miss one line item, you miss one thing in a folder, that bill doesn't get paid that month and you pay a late fee. And then like, you're paying for stuff that you don't use anymore, right? So big hospital, they're shutting down branches, they're shutting down wings of hospitals. We literally found fiber circuits that were active in a closet. It used to be a data closet, but now it's like literally been walled up. It's not a door there anymore. So there's just like active internet connection in a dead space in this building that no one's using, and they're just paying whatever $500 a month for it. So through all of that process, we found them, I think it was $1.2 million a year in total savings, once you account for what they were going to pay, which was like $20,000 a month or $120,000 a year. So it was a collaborative consultative engagement where we kind of, said, hey, this is what we do, the kind of conversations we like to have. They said, yeah, we can confirm that we're not using any software to help us with the, expense management for our telecom. I said, okay, well, it might not be your top priority, but you could potentially save a whole bunch of money for the hospital. And this hospital ran as a nonprofit, so it's kind of their responsibility to try and save money whenever they can. And we gathered the data, we gave it to Advantix. Advantix did all the numbers, and we gave them back a report that demonstrated, quantified the return on investment for Advantix. And I think that report was the thing that sold it, because we didn't hear from them for like 6 months after we gave it to them. And what was happening was our contacts were like, yeah, this looks great, we'll run it up the chain. And then it went to legal, and then it went to, the executive steering committee. And then it went to like, there was just like 6 or 7 different parts and decision makers that had to stamp their approval. And I think just having the report attached to it that said, this is a quantified 10x ROI if we make this investment, everyone was like, yep, we don't need to see any more than that. Boom, 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 stamp, stamp, stamp. And then they bought it. It was 18 months after we started the engagement that they actually purchased the software. And then we didn't get paid for another like 3 or 4 months, just because of the nature of the commission flows. We're the last to get paid typically. But that was an adventure. Definitely the biggest organization we've sold anything to. But you know, you can see right here, Advanix, they'll tell you what they do. These are the things that they sell. Here's the benefits, right? Here's the reasons why you might want to use a telecom expense management platform. You know, and then there's their social media. Some of these vendors put stuff on there that's helpful, some don't. But like, here's my contacts. If I wanted to contact leadership, like Nathan Brown's guy I talk to regularly. Natasha has been promoted, but she was the one that helped us with that hospital deal. Come in here, see their, you know, their technology list, not a whole lot there. But it does give you, you know, insight into the guy. And then this is just, they can manage, the hospital didn't buy this, but this was really the Advanix telecom expense audit is a monkey's paw, meaning we use that to get in the door, you know, do a transaction with somebody, show some value, and then hopefully we can manage the circuits as well. So Advanix can do that, where they will place orders for new circuits, they will disconnect old circuits, they will kind of just manage your entire telecom expense portfolio. And that's a much higher dollar amount. But the hospital didn't want to do that. So they can manage stuff like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Cellular, like that's the carriers that they have relationships with. This is, so marketing. So I love case studies. This kind of gives us a, you know, this is the case study description for Advanix. So situation is the decentralized invoice processing across 400 accounts. So that's what I just described at the hospital, right? Each, say there's 400 buildings in a organization. Each building has their own account for internet. That's what I look for if I'm looking for an internet, you know, telecom expense opportunity. Like, you've got 20 locations and 6 different internet providers across those locations, and each location has their own relationship with the ISP. That's inefficient, right? It might not make sense for that size organization, but it is definitely inefficient. You know, no visibility into inventory or build features, no reporting, no. This is what I meant with the hospital, the service rate error. Like, if you're paying a late fee every 2 months, that adds up, right? If you're missing your payments, or if you're paying for stuff that you're not using anymore, you know, the vendor's never going to tell you that, right? The internet company's never going to say, hey, we haven't seen any traffic on your internet connection, should you disconnect it? Like, no. They're literally never going to say that. They will let you bill till the lights turn off. So so that was the situation. And then the outcome, Advanix did RFP management, so request for proposal. Large organizations often do RFPs to kind of control the process of buying new stuff. They'll spell out what they want in an RFP, broadcast it, accept bids for a certain period of time, and then review all the bids and pick one. So Advanix helped them with that process of getting RFPs back from telecom carriers. So saved 20%, consolidated the process, made it more simple, consolidated billing accounts from 400 to 10. So we might not care about this because we're not messing with it, but the back office accounting people that have to pay all the bills absolutely do. If you got to pay 10 invoices a month compared to 400, that is hours and hours and hours of time that you're spending doing a menial task that you don't have to do. Discovered and eliminated unnecessary features and maintenance fees. Already said that, right? Could also be unused services. Manage the implementation and optimize solutions. That's just like, again, the time it takes for an employee to call around and get quotes and you know, configure a solution that's going to be installed, taking that off their plate, and then kind of the total cost reduction annually kind of quantified for them. So that's a good kind of concise case study. It was a regional bank, mid-market, domestic. You know, that's kind of the snapshot of what they could do for one of your prospects. So just kind of a deep dive into one vendor that we've worked with in the past. These branded battle cards are cool because they you can put your logo and contact information on it, and it'll, like, this just says Advantage, but I could have it be cloud on them there. So they kind of suck. I would never use this externally. Like, I wouldn't give this to a prospect, but it does kind of, like, you know, here's what an ideal customer looks like for Advantage, right?
And you had said earlier something about once you get a lead on somebody, they can't take them from you, or?
Yeah, yeah. So just we'll use Eventix for an example. They have direct salespeople, meaning people that will sell directly to the customer, and they have a channel program, which is how they work with us. And so
Right.
if I find an opportunity that I think is a good Eventix opportunity, I'll go to Eventix and I'll say, I got a prospect for you. I'd like to register the deal, register it as Cloud Hound. Here's the company name, address, and like contact information. And that's going to go into their system and say, this company, this prospect is off limits for the next 30 days, right? So I've given myself 30 days to try and get in there and close the deal, knowing that nobody else from Advantix is going to call them directly, right?
Right.
So that's what I meant by, no one can take that from you. And also it registers it so another Intelisys agent, one of you guys potentially, couldn't go sell it first, right? So I've run into that before where I found an opportunity, I brought it to the vendor, and the vendor said, actually, someone else has already registered this deal. So, not that I couldn't get another vendor, but I couldn't use that vendor for that customer in that time. That makes sense.
Yeah, and what's stopping the company from saying, nah, like, we don't want that guy, or we don't want that customer, and then you just say, okay, and
It's
then
possible. I've never had a vendor tell me they didn't want the customer though.
well, the reason being would be because it'll be cheaper for them to, wouldn't it be cheaper for them to use their own people?
Potentially. I mean, that's kind of, that'd be bad business, right? You'd be kind of
Yeah,
ostracizing the channel. And a lot of times the channel can bring like disproportionate value for vendors because they don't have to pay us anything until we sell stuff. So the only time they're paying us is when we bring them business. So they're typically pretty happy to work with us. I have not heard of a company saying, and honestly, this is a good question to ask John next time we're on together, is because he ran a sales team that was all direct, right? They were 95% direct sales with this little kind of afterthought of channel. And I was like, and I asked him, like, how did you decide when to go direct and when to go indirect? And he's like, if it was kind of like a painful account, like if this prospect was kind of a jackass and it wasn't a really big opportunity for us, we kick it to the channel. We would let our indirect partners take it and run with it. But if it was a juicy big sale, we'd absolutely keep it. So he might have a different perspective on this than I do.
okay.
I've never encountered it though, but that's saying not that much because I've only been in it for 5 minutes. So 5 years. So we're past 12. So I'm sure Brenna's just somewhere waiting for me to stop talking. But
I think it was fun.
yeah, no, I think that was kind of an open Q&A. I hope you guys got something out of that, learned a little bit, and could follow my semi-coherent rambling sometimes. Anybody have a parting shot, questions? Anything?
Yeah, your whole sales scope, it's interesting. It's a very large picture, and a lot of it is networking. And so it's just really knowing people. And I think one of the confusing things I was trying to figure out was, did you yourself start with like one specific product and then try and push that, or did you just start out with like a scope of multiple items and then try and find other companies that you knew would possibly be interested in stuff like that, and try and figure out a little bit of information about the product you're pushing so that you can have something to say when you're actually introducing it to the people?
Yeah. Yeah, I educated myself on the different types of internet service, and that's something we can show you maybe next time. Is there's a whole side of that Intelisys website that's called Intelisys University, and it's teaches agents from a sales perspective about all the different products and services. So the first course I took was the history of telephony, and it taught me from the first telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, up through the antitrust breakup of Bell Telephone to Baby Bells to how we got there today, and then what the future looks like. So really, I'm a history major. It took me through the entire process, and now I have context for what it is that we're doing. And then I started taking the individual certifications on network and different internet types and all that stuff. So if I went to market, I'm just selling internet, learning the difference between synchronous and asynchronous internet, for example, right? The fiber is synchronous, same speed up and down, dedicated versus best effort, that type of stuff. You kind of learn these relatively easy to comprehend terms and know why your customer might want one or the other, right? So being able to explain, for example, why, a gig coax isn't as good as 50 meg fiber, right? 1,000 meg coax is really sounds fast. And like, why is the 50 meg fiber more expensive than the 1,000 meg coax? So that would be, that's where I started. And that's really where that Intelisys platform kind of does the best work, is it's supporting that kind of network and infrastructure type conversation. So, but yeah, I picked a product type, service type. I didn't pick a vendor. I just said, I'm going to work on selling internet. People said to sell internet till you figure out what you're good at. I'm going to go sell internet. And so then I started kind of learning about different types and the different vendors and who does what and how they price it and how they sell it. And that's still part of what I do. So that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was advice from multiple people that have been in the industry for a long time. They're like, just go sell circuits. What is a circuit? I don't know what you're talking about. I thought Circuit City or circuit boards or computer chips. I was like, you sell computer chips to who? Like, oh no, you mean internet. You mean internet service. Okay. So Brenna, if you're here, I'll keep talking until you cut me off.
Brenna's out today, Jack. It's
Okay.
it's
Sorry.
fine.
Fawn,
Yeah,
are you here?
she might be out.
Okay.
I think we have a pretty free schedule today.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm happy to keep talking if you guys have more questions. I'm not going to just jump off because it's 12. Anybody have anything else? Were you guys going to go have some lunch? Like what's?
Yeah, we usually have lunch at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
No
then
sales tech.
you guys can just tell me to go pound sand and go have lunch.
That was my
Yeah.
goal, Jack. That I
But
wanted to.
Thank you,
I wanted
Steven.
to,
I was
like-
waiting for somebody to tell me to shut the fuck up and
Like, the problem is my lunch is baking for like 60 minutes, so I can hang out with you and you can talk about technology all day, Jack.
well, unless if someone has a question or comment, wants to talk about something else, let me know. I'm here.
I got something to run by you.
Send it.
All right. So I have I had this firm called Beck and Dickinson. I applied to their Skill Bridge program, and it's been he's one of your Navy SEAL colleagues,
Beck and Dickinson.
Beck and Dickinson, and they do medical supply, like the supply chain. And I've talked with a couple of their managers there, phenomenal, great leaders, really good. But the recruiter has been difficult, to say the least.
Yeah.
And so and I obviously articulated to him that, like, hey, in November I'm going to start like shipping my shit back to the States, and I'm going to move from Germany to the States, and there's kind of a timeline that goes with that. And so we've been talking for 3 months, but he offered me a Skill Bridge yesterday.
Cool.
So it's like 60 days late.
Yeah.
Then since then I have taken a Skill Bridge, an actual training thing with this. And I said, hey, I'm doing training in the meantime. But then he sent me a screenshot of, I put on like the internship we're doing with 70 Group, like 70 Group internship. Boom, this is what I'm doing. So, like he said, hey, we got some concerns about, you being with somebody else and whatever. And I know that I'm not going to email this guy back because he's not, like, we do okay this way, but with email, he struggles immensely. So, and we're not even to the point of, I do not have 5 W's, like who, what, when, where, like I don't have details of exactly what the whole thing is. And he even said in there, hey, you're not being offered a job, you're just offered an internship, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So we're not even to the part of like, hey, I have all the information, I can look at this. Is this exactly where I want to go? But, and I do not want to talk to the guy. I sent Jordy his way because, whatever. So I want your advice. Like I just gave you like 9 out of 10 problems of like their veteran skill bridge pathway is fucked, 7 ways to Sunday. All right. Like there's a lot of problems here. I just threw out like 7 out of 10 to you right now in this conversation. But it's a great like Beck and is a great company. So I just don't know how to handle this. I sent Jordy, gave Jordy the info.
I think that was the right move. I mean, that was what I was gonna say before you told me that. I was gonna say, have you talked to Jordy about this? Because I don't pretend to understand the nuances of SkillBridge or what Jordy's doing any more than any of you do. You probably know more than I do because you're in it. I didn't do SkillBridge when I was coming out. So that was in general. I mean, and this is just my kind of intuition here, but like if you're engaging with a company and you haven't even like got a job and you're just still talking to them and they're giving you kind of bad vibes, just move on. I mean, that's kind of my impression is like, I was looking at buying a franchise. That was one of my entrepreneurial ideas getting out. Is like, what about franchise ownership? It's kind of a halfway house between, using a corporate model and working for yourself. Kind of buy the blueprint and let them give you advice and pay them a fat fee. Like, that made sense. And the guy that was trying to sell me the franchise, super friendly and nice and responsive. But as we got closer and he kind of got the more and more sense that I was like into it and going to do it, he started being, he wasn't as respectful with my time as I was hopeful for. And I was like, I haven't even given this dude the money yet. I haven't even purchased the franchise. And he was going to be the guy that supports me once I purchased. And I was like, what likelihood are you going to get better if I buy the franchise? If you don't respect my time now when I'm a prospect, how are you going to respect my time when I'm a client or a customer? I was not anticipating it was going to get better. I was thinking this is going to get worse. Like we literally had a call scheduled. Call was 5 minutes into it for a 60-minute call. And this is like the 10th time we've talked. And he's like, hey, I got this call coming in from a really important person. And just, can I call you back? I'm like, yeah. And then, he called me back and I was like, I gotta be honest, man, this is like the 3rd time you've kind of like prioritized something else over me. And I don't really have a good feeling about giving you 50 grand for a franchise if this is how you're going to treat me as a prospect. And he's like, no. I was like, it's done, man. I'm going to move on. And so he was pissed and he sent me a really long, scathing fucking kind of a fuck you message on text. And I was like, boom, I made the right call, right? If this is how this dude's fucking reacts to this, imagine how he would have reacted to me complaining about something as a franchise owner or something, or just bring
So
up
I
an
think the
issue.
definite solution is, I'm not emailing the guy back. I'm not calling him. I'm going through Jordy, and Jordy will very well articulate. I mean, the facts are, hey, Steven's doing a training cohort with us. We are able to farm him out to, for an internship with you guys.
Right.
This looks phenomenal. But my gut is like, this guy is going to get all pissy and problematic and all that. And I can be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. Jordy might talk to eventually get a hold of him and have get back to me. Steven, man, I had a great, phenomenal conversation with Nick. We would love to try to make this, move this forward. And I think you should really, consider this. And then that's another conversation. But there's 9 out of 10 other ways where I feel like the guy won't call Jordy back, won't email him back, or he's going to be a dick, So I appreciate that. I'm telling, obviously I know already what I'm going to do. It's just, I just wanted to run it by you and get a thumbs up.
There's
You're
plenty
doing the
of
right
fish in the
thing.
sea. I think that's the answer, is that there are so many opportunities out there that if someone, it's like dating, right? If you met someone at the bar and you're like, yeah, I really think we got a good thing going on, but X, Y, and Z, you didn't call me back, or just walk away, right? There's more fish in the sea. Believe in yourself enough that you can find a better one, right?
I think and I love the managers. I love the managers there and everything like that. But even with that, obviously the recruiter's more difficult. The managers are pretty good. But even then, if I'm a manager, right, and I want to bring in Steven to intern with me for 60 days, and then I want to look at doing something. Well, wouldn't that guy call me on the telephone? Or
probably, yeah. And just because whoever you're talking to, they represent their company's culture, right? Whether they mean to or not. And that's probably indicative of other people in the company, right? And so it's like, if there's smoke, there's fire, and you're like, there's a little smoke, but I'm gonna keep going and see if I find the fire. Like, welcome to go down that path, but that's how you get burned. So Mark had a question, and Stephen, I appreciate that, man.
No, we're good. Thank you
that's
so much.
that's what I'm here for. Mark asked, what advice can you give us on tech sales, what to avoid, and how we can succeed if we pursue this path? That's a big question, Mark. There's a lot in there. Just from a general sales perspective, but it's applicable to technology as well. Getting over the idea that you need to be the smartest person in the conversation and know everything and offer advice. Like that's my hardest thing, is that I'm in the military. I was looked at as a subject matter expert, and people came to me and they're like, Jack, what do we do here? Right? We got these motherfuckers over here shooting us with a PKM. What can you do about that? Like, we're pinned down. I got it, right? I'm gonna go do the thing. Or whatever. I was an instructor teaching other SEALs how to do what I did. So it was like, I need to know my shit. I need to be able to answer with an intelligent answer. And that's not as true in sales, right? I've approached sales in that same perspective where I'm trying to be the SME. But the reality is I've got, I've already showed you guys, hundreds of companies that are full of experts, technical experts in the field. And that's who I rely on to actually be the smartest people in the room. So I almost play dumb. Even if I do know what they're talking about, I'll play dumb and keep asking questions. And I think the world is full of salespeople that think that they're smarter than their prospects, and they can outsmart the prospect and convince them to buy something. And that's not what we want to do. That's not what I'm trying to do. That's not good for the prospect. It's not good for a relationship if you're trying to build with someone. If you're just trying to sell widgets and wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and sure, right? But like for the type of kind of complicated long sales cycle stuff that we're talking about here, you really can't approach from a smartest person in the room transactional perspective. You'll look at it like, everyone's smarter than me. I'm just the guy. You ask me the questions. I'm going to keep asking questions, and get you talking. And then once I've got a really good idea of what you're trying to do, I'm going to go try and find the smartest people out there to solve your problem for you, right? I use the analogy of coordinating an airstrike for my purposes, because that's what I did. But like, my ground force commander would tell me what he wants in plain English. Ground force commander's intent is as follows. Okay, got it. If his intent was to blow up a building, I'm not going to run over there with a satchel charge and smack it on the building and then run away. And like, that's the least efficient way to do it. Put me in great risk, and it's like, might or might not work. What's a lot more effective is me to say, hey, Mr. A-10 pilot, here's what we're trying to do on the ground. Could you help us with that? And they're going to say, hell yeah. We're going to do a east to west attack for high angle and whatever. I don't need to tell them how to do all that stuff. I don't even need to know how they do it. I just need to know that they can fulfill the request of the customer, which is my ground force commander. So that's how I've tried to approach it. What's the intent of the customer? What are they trying to do? What are they struggling with? What pains? I try not to say pain, especially to customers, because it's kind of cliche, but what are they feeling right now? What's going on in their world? And is there a way for me to help? And I almost want to pretend like there's not until I'm convinced that there is, right? If we've talked about that in the sales, sales submarine piece of the training is desperation is a stinky cologne. If you come in and you're like, oh yeah, we're perfect for you, we're gonna be a great fit, you're telling them what they think that they're going to hear from a salesperson. But if you take the kind of what, I don't think we're going to be a good fit necessarily, but I'm still going to ask you these questions just to go through the process and be kind of skeptical. Asking them questions, never volunteering to know what to do. And that's hard. Still, big challenge for me is to not jump to solve. But that is when I've been successful. It's been times when I didn't pretend to know what I was doing, just asked them questions, played dumb, and let them kind of be the smartest person in the room. Simplified. That's right. Yeah. My uncle has done this for years, right? He's been in tech sales most of his life, and he's the least tech savvy person. I've never heard him use a jargon or, the occasional like acronym, but like it's all solution driven, right? It's not vendor driven, vendor agnostic. It's just what's the best technology out there to solve your problem, right? That's all we're trying to do. And I will use my ScanSource resources to say, like, listen, I think we've had enough conversation for me to say that we're on the right track. I'd like to, with your permission, bring in one of my engineering resources to kind of further this conversation. So, you know, we think we're on the right track. We're going to use this guy to confirm that your business technology and this solution that we're looking at are going to be compatible, and it's going to fix the problem you're talking about. You know, let someone else be the person that's saying that, and that way it's like, it's not me saying it. It's this guy who's a 20-year networking engineer who doesn't work for any of the vendors we're talking about. He's just saying, listen, based on what your business is going through right now, this technology solution is what you should consider. And then we'll say, okay, great. Do you agree? And they'll say, yeah, that sounds great. Who can do that for us? And like, okay, we'll get you 3 options lined up by next week, and then we can, review this time next week. Right? It's consultative, and you're really never jumping to solve. You're just controlling the process and trying to get them to kind of buy into the process and ask, give information versus, I don't know, you giving everything. I don't know, kind of a ramble here at the end, but anybody else have any thoughts, questions, things they want to share, run by me while we're here? Or is everybody just thinking about lunch?
I have a quick question, Jack, since we got the time, and
End it.
then I'll bug out and grab some lunch. During your transition, you did the telecom, you did the AT&T. What was your safety net when you launched and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do indirect sales?
Yep.
What was your safety net that you knew, hey, my family's still gonna get fed as long as I do X, Y, and Z?
So that's a great question. I'll give you my, it was kind of my internal break-even point. Like what needs to be true for this to be viable for me to keep doing this, right? And to be fully honest, I did this for 18 months and didn't see a dime. So that was, that was baked into the process. I knew it wasn't going to be an overnight thing. Like I said, we were working with Prisma for almost 18 months. At the end of the 18 months, then they signed the contract. Then it was another month or 2 or 3 before I actually got paid. So that it's a long sales cycle, just high level. I started this business in January 2018, or the same time that I got accepted into Clemson's MBA program, which started in like May or June of 2018. So I had 6 months before my MBA started. So I was like, I'm going to do this for the next 6 months plus the 2-year MBA program. So 2.5 years as an experiment, right? I had no idea what I was doing, never done it before, didn't even really know what it was that we were trying to sell. But I was like, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to throw spaghetti at the wall. And at the end of 2.5 years, with the GI Bill, which I use for MBA, you get a housing allowance pegged to cost of living wherever you are. So where it's like $1,100 a month housing allowance from the GI Bill. So I was like, the end of my MBA, my housing allowance from the GI Bill will go away. And if my Cloud Hound commission income is at or above $1,100 a month, then I'm going to keep going. If it's not, I'm going to do something else. I didn't know what that was, but I didn't want to go to work for somebody else. I was motivated to make it work. And when that MBA ended, I think we were at like $1,250 a month. It was just above that threshold that I'd set for myself to say, this is viable. So that's going to be different for everybody, but that was how I kind of structured it in my mind, was like, I'm going to try this, right? I saved for years, always lived with my means. I had a bunch of savings that I could rely on and say, okay, I knew I wanted to go into business for myself. I didn't know what it looked like, but I'm ready. My wife was on board. I got this MBA program to kind of it gives me some time to kind of figure out who I am and what I want to do out of the military. Give me time to network and try a lot of stuff, right? Like I said, when we started, we tried a lot of stuff. Tried selling internet, tried selling cloud services, security, infrastructure, everything. Really anything that ScanSource and Telus had to offer, we were trying to sell it to anyone in the world. So just chasing stuff all over the place. And at the end of that 2.5 years, it was like, am I replacing that income that's going away from the GI Bill? And of all the stuff that we tried, what worked, right? What of all those things was the most viable, and then double down on that thing. And so that's really been the process ever since. It's just like, okay, what's the next goal, right? Is it $1,100 a month at first? Okay, great. What's the next goal? 10,000 a month. That's what I'm shooting for today. We hit it a couple months, and then we kind of went back down to where we are now. So, just setting little goals for yourself and putting a time limit on it and saying, what can I stomach, right? How much risk, how many months can I endure a $0 paycheck from what I'm doing?
Okay, cool. That totally makes sense to me. I guess when I have thoughts in my head about, hey, is this a viable option? The same thoughts are kind of there. Do you have the determination that meets, the fears that I'm processing during the thoughts?
It's absolutely nerve wracking. I'll tell you that. And it's transition in itself is scary, right? Your identity is changing. In some cases, your ability to be the provider for your household is in jeopardy, right? I mean, there's a lot of like deep-seated identity issues going on as we leave the military, right? I mean, I fully relate to that. I'm still dealing with that, right? 5 years is not that long. It feels good to have, like, especially as a SEAL, like you're like a secret agent. You have a fucking like hidden alter ego that you don't tell people about, that you go around the world doing crazy missions and shit. And it's like your own self identity is like shattered. I essentially took a hammer and smashed this like, fucking painting that I'd painted for myself that defined who I was. And that was painful. Mark asks, did I start the business as a side hustle? I mean, a side hustle to school, right? I was going back to school as an MBA. So it was a side hustle, but it was my only job. I didn't have any other vocations at that time. So it was my main focus professionally while I went to school for business and for analytics. And so that was sort of, I guess. But yeah, Brandon, I mean, the 5 biggest things people fear are like, public speaking, death, change of job, having a child, moving to a new house. And like, you're doing potentially 3 of those things at once by transitioning out, right? Moving locations, changing jobs, your income stuff is changing and in jeopardy. So it's a scary time. So to add to that, the entrepreneurial fears that come with, starting your own thing, totally normal. And it's not for everybody. And I don't encourage everybody to do that, but it is an option. So something to think about. I mean, maybe you get out and do a job working for the man for 2 years, and then you're always positioning for that exit to go work for yourself. I mean, that's there's many pathways to entrepreneurship and self-employment. Just doing it right out of the gate isn't the only one. I'll say that I was very fortunate to both plan ahead to do what I did, and also have a dad and uncle that have been, my dad's been in sales his whole life. My uncle's been doing telecom his whole life, and they've been mentors and guides for me along the way. So that was really, I had that going for me already. So it made sense to give it a try, but worked out. And honestly, the lifestyle that I live now is absolutely what I was shooting for. And I'm really thrilled to be doing what we're doing now with you guys, right? This has been percolating in my head for 5 years, right? How can I use the analogy of doing a lead swimmer across a river, right? Carry the rope with you, tie it off, and now everybody else after you can use that rope. That's been my mentality from day one. Is like, how can I stay connected to the military? How can I give back? How can I help others, maybe make their first dollar as an independent salesperson in less than 18 months, right? Condense that timeline to maybe, 3 months or something like that. So that's, happy to be here.
That's awesome, Jack. I really appreciate the bonus time today. I got to bounce and do a quick 20-minute lunch with the missus. But when we get the extra time like we had today, I would love to pick up where we're leaving off here.
Love it. Hey, real quick, do we have class tomorrow? I know Monday's off.
I haven't heard anything otherwise.
Yeah,
Okay.
as far as I know, I think so.
I'll plan on being here then. I assume we do then. I know that for a lot of people it's a 4-day weekend, so I was just curious, but I will see you guys tomorrow at 11. And again, appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, Jack.
Take-
Yes,
take it
tomorrow
easy.
is a go. Yeah, they
Tomorrow's a
didn't
go.
set it as a down day. So just
Okay.
Monday. Monday they won't be in session.
Gotcha. Loud and clear.
Okay.
See y'all.
Alrighty, take care.
Are we just back at 12 now? 1 Eastern, I guess.
On. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still on.
I have a question. I came late this morning. I just want
Okay,
to check if I was on that list for Mark.
okay, let me check right now. Hold on one
Okay.
second.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, you are.
Okay, got it. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, all righty. See you later.
I see you.
All righty, bye. Hey, Anthony.
Hello,
Hey, Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing well. Are the breakout groups going on?
Yep, I already opened them up, so you should just be able to roll over to your room.
I'm not seeing them for some reason.
Hmm,
Do you
okay.
think you can toss me in one manually?
Yeah, I think so. Let's
I'm in,
see. Which
yeah, I'm
one are
in
you normally
6.
in? You're in 6?
6. Yeah,
Okay. Let's see.
awesome. Oh, I got group 1.
You got group 1. That's the main room. I thought I
Yeah.
opened it up. Hold on a sec.
Oh,
It's
I think I got it now. I think it
Okay.
might have just been Zoom being weird.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, cool.